All right, well, today I'm going to talk more about the weed management update. And again, my name is Doug Spaunhorst, and this is in collaboration with Al from LSU Ag Center. As many of you know, there are several difficult to control weed species in cane. As Al mentioned several of them previously, but I think I can get the majority of folks to agree with me that bitchgrass is probably our number one most problematic weed in our industry. And unfortunately, you get some calls of reports of control failure with itchgrass. And this is a call that Al got earlier this year. And he said, "Hey, Doug, I think we need to really go and check this out. This particular grower has a history of really having exceptional weed control. And it was this one particular field that he was just having difficulty with controlling itchgrass." So that spring, we went out there and we scouted it. We found several plants that appeared to be injured by Asulox, so we dug them up, brought them back to the greenhouse, and we grew those plants that survived treatment out, and we collected seed. After a few months, we germinated the seed, and we treated them with various rates of Asulox, all the way down from 1 quart to as high as 8 quarts per acre. And we also included a non-ionic surfactant. And when these itchgrass plants were treated was at what I would call the optimal plant growth stage. So they had about 5 leaves, and the uppermost leaf collar measured about 4 inches in height. Our spray volume was 15 gallons per acre, and we evaluated these plants 1 month after treatment. And again, this was in the greenhouse situation. So here are some pictures of several of those treatments. This is approximately 1 month after the treatments were applied. On the far left here, you can see the 0 quart per acre rate. So this is our non-treated check. And moving from left to right is we have increasing rates of Asulox. So 1 quart per acre rate did not kill it. It stunted it. But at the 2 quart, 3 quart, and all the way up to 8 quart, they all look very similar to what you see here between the 2 and the 3 quart. So we did see that we had considerable activity with the labeled rates. So some good news to report, at least with this population. I don't believe this population is resistant to Asulox. I think some things that we really need to consider, especially at this location, herbicide coverage may have been a leading factor that led to control failure. This particular grower, they had a really good stand of cane, and there was a lot of itchgrass underneath that cane canopy. Other things to think about is, did more plants germinate after that herbicide application? Again, that's Asulox is a post-emergence herbicide, no pre-emergent activity. Other things to think about when we might have a control failure is, did we calibrate our sprayer? We're using the correct herbicide use rate. And what is the size of those weeds at application? You know, scouting weeds from the pickup or the tractor, weed size can visually appear very different versus on the ground, walking down the rows and inspecting them on foot. So that kind of concludes the part 1 of this talk. And part 2 is some work that we began in 2019 up with the grower around Cade, Louisiana. And this particular grower presented the idea to Al and I about not using a pre-emergent herbicide, just letting the itchgrass emerge after planting. And at first I was very skeptical of this idea. It really goes against the grain of thinking. But, you know, that's why we're in the research department. We need to look at all these alternative ideas. So what this grower was most interested in is, how can we utilize paraquat after planting? So the idea was to plant the cane and just let the itchgrass emerge. And as I just mentioned, this is really a non-conventional and risky approach. It doesn't take too much time to look back in 2018 when we had a very wet year after planting. And the big question is, can I get back into the field? And timely apply that paraquat application. Because if those plants get too large, we could really get poor control. And with paraquat being a contact herbicide, it's non-selective. So anything it comes in contact with, it's going to injure and burn. So are you willing to accept that crop injury? Also, with the new paraquat, we have to have certified applicators in this paraquat training. And as Al mentioned earlier, aircraft applications, these may not be legal in the future. And being that this is a contact type herbicide, we really need to maximize herbicide coverage to get the most successful control. So this next slide just shows you the table of the herbicide treatments for this study. So we had a total of 7. The first was a non-treated, and then the second, third, Asulox and Helmquat. And the fourth and fifth is Helmquat and Asulox with a residual herbicide, Prowl. And at the very bottom, this is our most aggressive approach, where we have a sequential treatment of Helmquat or Asulox with Prowl, followed by Helmquat and Asulox plus Prowl about 3 weeks later. So of course, the further down you get on this list, the more aggressive you get, and also more costly too. So on September 8th, 2019 and August 21st, 2020, so the study was done 2 years in a row. We planted the cane, and again, no pre-emergent herbicide. Our first post-treatments occurred when the inch grass measured approximately 1 inch, so we're targeting very small. That corresponded to October 1st, 2019 and September 7th, 2020. And at that point in time, the itchgrass or the sugarcane emergence was quite low, which I like that just so we reduce the potential of injuring sugarcane. So in that case, it's something to think about too. Treatment 6 and 7, those were again the only treatments that had the 2 applications, and those were applied late October or late September, depending on the year. And those itchgrass plants varied more in stage, so anywhere from the cotyledons having 3 true leaves, and again, we're no more than 2 inches in height. We had considerably more cane emergence, and the average dewlap height of those cane plants were no larger than 1 inch. So for the data that I'm going to present, the itchgrass reduction data. So as you can see here in this picture, this is not itchgrass, I know that. It's ryegrass actually, but I just wanted to show you just a picture. We actually went in these fields, laid out a 1/3 meter square quadrat, a given known area, and we actually counted all the surviving itchgrass plants within this area. And we did that 2 times. The first time was 21 days after that first treatment, and then we came back again 21 days and counted all the plots after that sequential treatment was applied. So you can see we're counting weeds middle of November in 2019 and the middle of October in 2020. So the next slide, values that you're going to see. So values that are closer to 100, that's good. We have clean plots, very little, if any, itchgrass. But values that are closer to 0 indicates those plots are really dirty, or you have a control failure or a whole bunch of itchgrass plants there. So again, this is the density reduction data for both years. At 21 days after treatment, we see that we see anywhere from 65 to 89% density reduction, which is good. It's obviously not perfect. At 21 days out, we do see a benefit where we had Prowl mixed with Helmquat versus Helmquat alone. But the data didn't quite show that at 21 days out with Asulox and Prowl versus Asulox alone. But we go out another 21 more days, so this is actually 21 days after the second application, or you can think of it for the first 4 rows, 42 days after those treatments. So here we got up to 98% density reduction. So it's not 100, it's not perfect. And as you can see at the very bottom, it's an expensive type program. What was encouraging was to see that with that single application of Helmquat and Prowl, or Asulox and Prowl, was statistically equal to the two-shot program. Again, pictures tell 1,000 words. This is mid-November 2019. This is the day after that hard freeze that we had. The picture on the far left, this is our non-treated, so quite a bit of itchgrass pressure at this location. The middle picture is just Helmquat alone. You see there's still a considerable amount of itchgrass on that left shoulder within the dotted black square area. And then the two-shot program on the far right, those plots are very, very clean. But this kind of gives you an idea of what the cane looked like in mid-November. This is, in my opinion, not a very good stand. I was hoping to have a stronger stand, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. However, in 2020, the cane stand was much better, in my opinion. You can see the picture on the far left. The itchgrass was much more advanced. I think we had a little bit warmer temperatures during the second year of the study, which alluded to better weed growth too. And those itchgrass plants are just about ready to start flowering on the far left. Again, not really satisfactory control with Helmquat alone, but really encouraging to see on the far right what can happen with a two-shot program. Crop injury, this is 21 days after the second application, and I guess what is encouraging is to see how much cane regrowth we had from that single application, but that's 42 days out in the middle versus 21 days out after the second application on the far right, where we had 11% crop injury. That's something we're going to expect and be willing to accept, with a paraquat application. So how did these several different treatments affect cane yield? So again, we only have the yield data for that first year. We hope to get it for 2021 for the treatments that were applied this last planting. But we saw no treatment effect for stalk population, estimated cane yield, sugar yield, TRS, or fiber. And I think a lot of that had to do with just the overall poor growth of cane that we had at this location in 2019. So some general initial findings. Number one, cane injury from that second paraquat application applied in 2019. It really was difficult to assess because of that November 13th freeze. The injury was much more obvious in 2020. Number two, we were fortunate that the field conditions for that first application, it was dry. However, in that second application, in 2019, the wheel tracks were quite tacky. And I think we could really run into some issues with itchgrass emergence if we fail to include Prowl in that first application, and if we have warm temperatures that follow. Number three, Prowl plus paraquat was better than the paraquat alone at 3 weeks after the first treatment. And what was encouraging was that the two-shot program was equal to the single-shot Prowl program when we had either Asulox or Helmquat mixed with Prowl. So we need to really consider what is the most cost-effective approach in this situation. Just some final thoughts. Prowl is a very important herbicide for managing itchgrass pre-emergent, and especially at 0 to 1 month after planting. And fortunately, we had poor cane emergence in 2019 and 2020, and this really, I think, limited the yield potential in this study. But I'm much more optimistic with what I'm seeing so far in the second year of the study. And I'm thinking we're going to see some differences in the treatment effects just due to better crop establishment. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions if time allows.